citizens, and thanks for tuning in to Nindie Nation. I'm Jeff, and today on episode 148, we're taking a look at every indie game hitting the Nintendo Switch through the week ending June 19th. You can find more Nindie Nation on Twitter, and if you want to get all kinds of nerdy with your fellow citizens, come hang out with us on Discord. We also gather around the Nindie Drum Circle and check out a couple of this week's new releases, so if you want to see more of a couple of this week's most exciting titles, stop by Nindies at Nite this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern. If you like these videos, please don't forget to click like and subscribe because it all helps us grow in ways I don't understand. With that out of the way, we've got a great show for you this week, citizens, in both quantity and quality all around. So let's waste no more time and dive right into things with the 9 neglected Nindies that released since episode 147. If you joined us for Nindies at Night last week, you saw us check out Super Perils of Baking, the latest release by Lilymo Games. A remake of sorts from their very first title, this is a $10 homage to 16-bit platformers. It looks nice and tells a silly story all in iambic pentameter, which gives the game a clever, lighthearted tone, but outside of recreating the feeling I got from renting random, no-frills Super Nintendo games back in the 90s, there just wasn't much here to keep me interested. Doesn't mean it's bad, in fact it's clear there's a lot of love behind this game, but there are a lot of excellent platformers already on the eShop, so if Super Perils of Baking is of interest to you, I'd suggest waiting for a sale. The gang over at Quantum Astrophysicists Guild is back at it again with yet another unique puzzler, this one being the donut-themed Freshly Frosted, which released with a 10% discount for $8.99. It's a single-screen game where you manage a bunch of conveyor belts, buttons, and switches in order to make, donuts. It's got a chill tone with narration that keeps the action interesting, and while I have yet to play it, this team's track record tells me it's probably a pretty good time. But the neglected Nindie that caught my eye more than any other last week is Lost Ruins by Altari Games. After a successful Kickstarter in August of 2020, this side-scrolling survival action game was picked up by Dangan Entertainment and released for $19.99. Taking place in a dark, mysterious world of dungeons and hideous monsters, you play as a little anime girl who uses all kinds of weapons and magic to bring back her memories and find a way out. The game appears to be a bit more linear than most titles you might compare it to, and the combat looks really deep and fun to experiment with. The anime characters feel a bit at odds with the dungeon-like world populated by gory action and nasty enemies, but it helps give the game an otherworldly tone that I haven't seen since Ender Lilies last year. If I can nab a copy of this one, I would love to include it on this week's Nindies at Night. And Nindie newcomer Things for Humans made their eShop debut last week, dropping Video World for $3.50. I'll let them tell you more.
Sing and complete rhythmic challenges while you decorate a video store for Halloween and make friends with the magical pumpkin.
I guess it's a compliment to the Video World EP by a synth-pop artist called Monster Mansion? Anyone ever heard of that? It's cute and looks kind of fun, but I just can't tell how much of this is actually a game versus just some kind of promotion for the musician or band or whatever. And Indie Nova, a solid C-tier publisher, drops what, by name alone, I initially thought might be a game that let you remove Benjamin Kistler from the eShop. However, that's unfortunately not what they meant with Delivery from the Pain, which released for $8.99. With a tone and imagery that reeks of someone who just loves The Last of Us, this zombie-themed game looks to be part top-down shooter and part survival sim. Certainly a budget release, it still seems ambitious with all of the survival, crafting, and consequential dialogue choices that all play into seeing how many days you can survive the apocalypse. As with most Indie Nova releases, I'm definitely on the fence with this one, but I would like to give it a try. However, if you want to see the games from last week that I absolutely do not want to give a try, take a look at these. Zeus Quest: The Rebirth of Earth is another remaster of another 90s PC game meant for kids. It's a point-and-click adventure with dreadful-looking minigames, and just like all of these ports by Crazysoft, I could only recommend spending $10 on this if you are extremely fond of and nostalgic for more of the original. Benjamin Kistler apparently goes by Kistler Studios now as he continues to change his publishing name so people can't see just how many turds he shit out on the eShop floor. And just like the guy who pissed all over the public bathroom but couldn't be bothered to clean it up, we know all about the mess you leave behind, and we struggle to see why you couldn't just put Jewel Match straight into the toilet where it belongs. It's not that hard. Red Deer Games publishes Pro Gymnast Simulator, which makes a lot of sense thematically, because just like watching gymnastics videos on YouTube, this title is one more faceplant in the fail compilation video that has become their entire catalog. And you know all of those ads you see on social media for those awful-looking mobile games? You know, the ones with hordes of zombies or the puzzles where you lead the guy to the treasure by pulling on keys? That's the kind of stuff that Midnight Works makes. Now, while I struggle to see exactly what the, quote, game is in this asset flip, I can tell you that there's absolutely zero reason for even a second to consider giving them $15 for... Hold on. Let me make sure I read this as grammatically correct as possible.
Prison Life Simulator 2022 World
Fight
Battle
GTA Ultimate!
What? I swear I'm in my 4th year of doing this now, and it still amazes me that people look at stuff like that and say,
Yeah, we should ask people to give us money for this.
you know? Lost Ruins looks really good though. I hope we get a chance to check it out. Anything else here you'd like to see more of? Let me know down in the comments. As I said earlier, this week is packed, both in terms of quality and quantity. We've got a lot to cover, so grab a seat, kick back, relax, and let's take a look at the 19 new releases hitting the Nintendo Switch through Sunday, June 19th. Marmalade Game Studio is best known for porting board games like Battleship, Clue, and Life to the Switch. And on Monday, they bring another board game to life with Jumanji: The Curse Returns for $14.99. This one is interesting. Like the movie, it centers around a board game, so you can play with up to 4 people, and you roll dice, move across the board, and try to make it to the end. I want to hate this, especially with its cartoony mobile game visual style, but when you land on a space to encounter animals, you actually get whisked away to a turn-based RPG-like battle where you use cards that can be upgraded as you play through the game. And it looks, cool? I'm not gonna play it, but I'm curious if there's actually a fun, family-oriented, kinda pseudo-JRPG hidden in this board game. I'll be watching reviews on this one for sure. On Tuesday the 14th, I've officially been married for 14 years. That's crazy. To celebrate, I'm sure, the teams at Room C Games and Versus Evil are releasing The Hand of Merlin for $29.99. A PC game just now leaving early access, this is a turn-based tactical RPG set in a horrific version of medieval fantasy on the brink of apocalypse. You start by recruiting a party and then set out from Albion to Jerusalem, making all kinds of permanent choices about your journey along the way. The combat itself is what you'd expect and doesn't really do anything to set itself apart, but the randomized adventure that changes every time you play and how that ties into the setting does provide a more unique identity. In fact, one could say that the 3 things which help The Hand of Merlin stand out among its peers are procedurally generated levels, rogue-like mechanics, and RPG elements! On Wednesday the 15th, East Asia Soft delivers one of their 2 weekly games, where one is a low-budget take on something retro, and the other is, well, jailbait.
Dude, put your pants on! Giggity giggity.
We start with Thunder Kid 2 Null Mission for $7.99. We covered the original last year, and at the time, I said it was like mashing Crash Bandicoot and Space Harrier together. The camera's in third person, but it plays like a rail shooter where you can move forward through the level, but only side to side on a 2D plane as you dodge obstacles and shoot anything that moves. The visuals are a big turnoff for me. I just don't like that style that accompanies so many East Asia Soft releases as of late, but the gameplay looks pretty fun. Should we check this one out on stream? Let me know. Oh, and 2 years ago, Bloom Digital gave us Later Daters, an M-rated, super tongue-in-cheek take on the dating simulator where you play as a bunch of old folks living out their golden years in an old folks' home. This week it gets a premium re-release to coincide with the new expansion called
Ye Old Cribbage Club, a later dater's game.
with the bundle coming in at $15 and the expansion alone for $5.99. The expansion is essentially a card game, but with a bunch of new characters and scenarios to interact with. So I guess now's the best time yet if what you're craving amounts to a horny grandparent simulator. And would you look at that, we've got a new entry in the Daddish series. I'll tell you what, Thomas K. Young really knows how to embody what makes indie games so great. Just like the two previous entries, Daddish 3 is a funny action platformer where you play as a dad who is a radish. You hop and bop around 50 stages looking for your babies, and the games always delight with a good mix of humor and a bunch of variety in how you work your way through the levels. Seriously, these games are great, and the first two are frequently on sale for just $1 or $2. However, if you want to be the first to experience the third entry in this saga of salad ingredients, and you just can't wait for a sale, I still think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you pay the full asking price of $9.99. We've got a pretty solid lineup on Thursday with a couple of games I suspect will make many of your Game of the Year lists. But before we get to that, here's a few that are more likely to make your Turd of the Year list. Hook Games! Haven't seen them in a while. Looks like this week they've got Connect the Dots with Lines Universe. Great job, team. The Bass Fishing might be a decent game, I don't know. My guess, though, is that
D3 Publisher!
doesn't have the best fishing game on the Switch, and most people probably don't need more than one. Oh, and here's the other East Asia Soft game. We got the retro remake already covered, so that means that Nico's Secret Room is... yep. It's the pervy one.
Giggity, 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 giggity.
Looks like you sneak into the room of your voyeuristic friend to complete sliding block puzzles of the half-naked women he photographed when they weren't looking. Have we ever looked to see if the developers are, on the list? If you've ever been to a Walmart, you've seen a copy of one of the many chicken shooting games that seem to grace every Nintendo console. This week,
Triva
brings that to the Switch for the low price of $25 with Crazy Chicken Extreme, with an X, because, Mountain Dew and grinding rails with your soaps and all of that. Around the World is one of those free touch the JPEG in a pile of JPEG mobile games that barely amounts to more than reading and then dialing a phone number, and Asylum Square Interactive are the ones responsible. And then...
MD Games
publishes Barn Finder. That's right, Barn Finder. You find barns, and then you look for stuff in them. It's kind of like what you do when a loved one dies. In fact, I wonder if they'll too find a treasure trove of books from the 1960s detailing the clinical reason why people who don't agree with you are gay and how that leads to brain damage, because God tries to create everyone equal, but sometimes he messes up, and that's why some people are gay. Not that that ever happened to me or anything. Thursday the 16th is looking downright excellent, my friends. But first, one of the games that releases that day just might be a Nindie no-no, but I can't tell. So we'll put Zorro the Chronicles right here. It's published by Nacon, who is huge, so I probably shouldn't even be covering this anyway, but, well, wait, why am I covering this? It looks awful, and it's not even necessarily a Nindie since I have no idea who the hell developed it. Never mind. Moving on!
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in the hot shell.
Cowabunga, my dudes! If, like me, you grew up in the 80s and 90s, you lived through peak Ninja Turtles. And if you're a youngin', hopefully you've had at least some exposure to all the reasons why our generation just loves Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The toys, the movies, the original cartoon, the numerous games that were all good, every single one. Man, Ninja Turtles is just the best. And you know what? In 2020, while I never made a full top 10 Nindies of the Year list, my favorite for that year goes to Panzer Paladin. That's why I was so thrilled when last summer we learned that Tribute Games' next title was to team up with Dotemu of Streets of Rage 4 fame to bring Ninja Turtles games back in a big way. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge launches on Thursday the 16th, and this beat-em-up seems to grab the best parts from across the Turtles brawlers and mix them all up alongside stuff like the combo and special systems that made Streets of Rage 4 such a successful return to form. You've got immaculate pixel art, 7 playable characters with April, Splinter, and Casey Jones joining the crew, and drop-in, drop-out multiplayer that can work with any combination of up to 6 players on the couch or online. We got a brief glimpse of the adventure mode, which appears to have a map to traverse and little mini-levels, but at least as of now, we haven't seen much more beyond a few trailers and the first 2 levels. It launches for $22.49, reflecting a 10% discount. And the only big unknown here is exactly how long this game is, and how much replay value there is. If it's anything like Streets of Rage 4, which I suspect it might be, there will be reasons to play through the game at least once with every character, and that might be the only real caveat. However, I understand for those of you strapped for cash, it can be a big one. I will definitely be checking this out on Nindies at Night, and I've offered that if a few of you plan to pick it up, we could make Nindies at Night a multiplayer experience. If not, I'll just play it on Xbox Game Pass while I wait for my Switch physical copy to arrive. I'll make a post and pin it below this video to figure out who might be interested in playing online Thursday night, either via Game Pass or Switch. If we've got a decent crew, we'll do it, so head down and let me know what you're thinking. I am so excited for this game. And then the source of a big leak last week that didn't really pan out, we finally see Neon White hit the Switch after being teased during a Nintendo Direct last year. It's published by Annapurna Interactive, which I've come to learn means 2 things. 1, it's going to be really artsy and probably not really fitting into any other genre. And 2, the value of this game is going to be extremely subjective. Either you're going to love it, consider it art, and play it over and over again, or you'll check it out and think,
This is weird. I don't get it.
And that's a big risk for a game priced in line with TMNT at $22.49 with a 10% discount. You play as characters in hell who were summoned to heaven to stop demons, and you do so by running really fast and doing parkour stuff in first person, while also managing a deck of cards which act as your weapons and abilities. Outside of that, this one is really hard to put into a box, so I'm not gonna really dive any deeper. If you're thinking about Neon White, I would suggest waiting for reviews and pay attention to outlets or reviewers that you trust, because this game will likely be very divisive. Okay, prepare yourselves, because we've got a team who is riding that caps lock button like a drunk cowboy on a mechanical bull on Friday night. What? I grew up in Texas. I know these things.
Katakawa
Brings us
Overlord, Escape from Nazareth.
And this parkour-driven Metroidvania looks really fun. According to my research, Overlord is a Japanese novel and anime series, so let me know if you're familiar with it. But my guess is that you don't need to have any knowledge of it before heading in. With so many Metroidvanias, we'll see focus on various parts of exploration, puzzle solving, or combat, but Overlord focuses on platforming and locomotion in a way that I can't wait to check out. You wake up in a big-ass tower and have to find your way out, hence the name, and along the way you'll get abilities that have you swinging from grapple hooks, freezing enemies to use them as platforms, jumping, sliding, dashing, and eventually meeting up with big Mega Man-style boss fights. Of course, there are secrets to find, and a very Super Metroid-style map to reference, and a handful of RPG systems to build up as you find and learn new abilities. I've been watching every trailer I could to find out more about this game, and I only want to try it more. Though I'm a bit hesitant with it being $30, even with a 10% launch discount, so I'm hoping
Katakawa
can hook me up with a code. Anyone else think this one looks really cool? And if your wallet isn't bleeding yet, hold it close because we've got a few more I think you're really gonna like. And for many of you, that includes Autonauts, a voxel-style base builder by Denki and Curve Digital, which hits the eShop for $19.99. Originally released for PC back in 2019, this game has a solid 80 on Metacritic, and there's an enormous community of creators on YouTube who love sharing tips and tricks for anyone looking to get started. Basically, you land on a planet and build it up from nothing to the point that it can keep itself sufficient without you there. You do this by building, crafting, and eventually making machines that will automate the settlement's tasks. The game goes even further, this is the part that I think sounds the coolest, by giving you a simple programming interface to actually dictate the routines that your robots and machines will use to keep settlers happy and well. If you're into base building and you want something with a bit more technical prowess, this game seems like a great fit. And there is more than enough content online if you want to explore it a bit further before jumping in. Mama Marin is a team with a short history of well-received romantic visual novels, including last year's Love Esquire. This week for $7.99, they bring us Perfect Gold and attempt to tell a tale about the alchemy of happiness, whatever that means. You got a magical city, a magical school, and two magical schoolgirls who skip detention to spend time together. Over the course of 2 to 4 hours, you'll watch these girls hang out, flirt, and spend their day adhering to the interactive choices you make along the way. Again, historically, this team's titles have been praised for good storytelling and voice acting, so it'd be nice to see their latest come along and tell a relatable story about girls falling in love in an otherwise mystical setting. It's rated E10, so while the cynical side of me wants to toss this game in the pervy pile, I actually think this might be a romantic visual novel focused on lesbians in love that isn't full of cringy stuff dreamed up by a 10-year-old whose parents were way too lenient with the internet filters. I'm gonna hope for the best here. Let me know if you try it out. And then we get another type of game that I don't often play, but the reviews from its early access and launch last year are so overwhelmingly positive that I want to make sure and give this game the spotlight it seems to deserve. In fact, I thought it was a bit tough to understand exactly what was going on in Cloud Gardens until I read the description. And it does such a good job, I'm just gonna read it to you in full right now.
In Cloud Gardens, you harness the healing power of nature to overgrow urban decay within wasteland dioramas. Plant seeds repurpose hundreds of discarded objects and create unique structures for nature to reclaim. Cloud Gardens' relaxing nature encourages creativity and is filled with an enormous catalog of objects and plant life to choose from. Share your creations with other gardeners, download looping videos, and embrace generative soundscapes. Part garden simulator, part dystopian landscape builder, part puzzle game. Cloud Gardens aims to fill you with satisfaction without the frustration.
Isn't that a great description? Kudos to Thomas Vandenberg, who goes by the developer name Noyo. Cloud Gardens is published by CoatSync Software, looks really promising, and launches for $17.99. Dolores Entertainment partners with Light Shards and A Binding Bridge to bring us Time Rift for $9.99, and I think it looks pretty cool. It's a neon Tron-like world of computers where you play as a hacker trying to protect or break various systems. Gameplay-wise, it's a top-down, action puzzler, I guess. You move a little icon around on screen while a firewall slowly tries to consume you. As you move, you have to pass through various gates and hit switches, so it's a combination of fast reflexes and memorizing patterns. Throughout the levels, you get narrative cues delivered through messages from the players and hackers before you, as well as a narrator similar to GLaDOS in Portal. All in all, it seems like a pretty fun concept. Last up on Thursday, a beloved side-scrolling shoot-'em-up gets ported to the Switch thanks to Axis Games and developer Pixel. Horigi Hugh and Friends is a highly rated, cute, and colorful shoot-'em-up that has a lot going for it. In a world of anthropomorphic animals, you play through half a dozen stages and 13 boss battles, with a little overworld in between that gives you the opportunity to buy all kinds of weapons and upgrades. You may see two characters on screen, but this is actually a single-player game with a mechanic where you can control both of the pilots at once, though I'm not sure how that works. I really like this title and plan to give it a shot if I can, as I enjoy entries in this genre that seem to be a little more accessible. I just can't do bullet hells, and this looks a bit more relaxed, which I like. Only thing here is the $30 price, which seems high. I'll watch reviews, and if it fares well, maybe we can try it too on Nindies at Night. Friday rolls around with 5 new games as you head into the weekend, starting with Final Vendetta, the latest game by Bitmap Bureau and Numbskull Games, most recently responsible for Battle Axe and Super Epic, so I'm already sold. It's an arcade-style beat-em-up very much inspired by Final Fight and Streets of Rage for up to 2 players. Its features read like a checklist for any other solid release in the genre. Multiple playable characters, a few modes to tackle, 3 difficulty settings, unlockable characters, and a combo system that allows for juggling. You know, what you'd expect from a modern beat-em-up. Will it do enough to stand out in this ever-crowded genre and justify its $21 price? I don't know, it's hard to tell, but I would like to find out. And then, I'm not sure how much time we'll spend here. Omari by
Omocat
is one of those indies that's received incredible praise, but only by a few outlets as it's flown under the radar for many on PC. It's an RPG adventure with similar vibes and themes meant for those of you who love Earthbound and Undertale. And as such, those are the people who have flocked to Omari. The reason I'm not going to dig into it deep right now is because I've seen it float around the Coming Soon page multiple times, and as of time of recording, it shows a release date on Friday, but with no price, which is usually a sign it's waiting for a direct or something, and is likely missing this Friday's date. We'll cover it more in the Neglected Nindies if it does release, but for now, put it on your radar if you enjoy the games that inspired it. Alright, now let's... Rated M, blood and gore, intense violence, nudity, strong language. What is... Oh yeah, I remember seeing ads for Oxide Room 104, and I remember noping the hell out of it. Goodness gracious, I'm not a religious person, but this game just might have me seeking God. So, the maniacs in Spain, going by Wild Sphere, have made this $25 game where you wake up in a bathtub, injured, because of organ harvesting, and it's kinda like an escape room game, but with body horror out the wazoo. Lots of people are excited about this one, so it's making the rounds, but I'm excited to move on. Well, at least I thought I was. Plunder Dungeons by Checkered Ink is some tile-based card-battling RPG that might not be terrible, but I just can't with these visuals, even for $3.99. However, last up this week is one I'm intrigued by. As usual, the last title is by Ratalaika, but instead of $5 or even $10, they team up with Winter Wolves and charge $20 for Tales of Erevorn Seasons of the Wolf. Now, even though it sounds like a prog rock album released in 1986, this is a visual novel RPG that's got, well, a lot of narrative, but also some turn-based tactical combat and turn-based JRPG combat. Lots of systems at play here. You play as one of 2 twins in an icy realm and go on an epic adventure with tyranny, romance, and just about every kind of RPG trope you can imagine. A nice touch here is that if you like the visual novel concept, but you don't want the RPG stuff, you can just get rid of it and play through the story. And I think that's pretty neat. What do you think, citizens? There's a lot here this week, with Shredder's Revenge and Dadish 3 leading the way for me, but I'm quite interested in Lost Ruins, Overlord, and Final Vendetta too. Let me know what stands out to you down in the comments, and before we take off for the week, let's go check in on the eShop. With 728 games currently on sale, these are our picks for 6 of the best Nindie deals on sale through at least June 20th. And this week's theme might not be all about the lowest prices ever, but I would consider each of these games to be in the running for my favorite games in the year they released. First up is Mighty Goose, Nindie Nation's number 3 pick of last year, and recently featured in our first Nindie Network episode where I interviewed Richard Limbs about this bombastic, hilarious, and just downright fun romp. If you like Mega Man X or Metal Slug games, this one is for you. It's currently half off for just $9.99 and includes the brand new free DLC that adds a new ending and a whole new area to explore, featuring a few new levels that make this game even better than it was before. And one of my favorites from the early days of the Switch is Bleed 2, which I've recommended many times before, but it's now 85% off for a measly $2.24. This 2-ish hour game has you jumping, shooting, flying, flipping, and doing things like surfing on missiles while engaging slow motion to keep your battle combo going. It's so badass, I love it. It's great for an evening or two, but also encourages you to play as multiple characters with very different gameplay mechanics through 4 different difficulties. So if you want more, Bleed 2 has plenty waiting for you. And for that price, I think you should check it out. Looking at games so far for this year, take note because there's a very good chance the next 4 titles will be in my top 10 for 2022. Ollie Ollie World released in February and is the latest by Roll7, featuring fantastic art direction, excellent dialogue and storytelling, and side-scrolling skateboarding gameplay that has yet to be topped, and in the genre as a whole competes for top billing, even up against the early Tony Hawk games. The vibe of Ollie Ollie World is infectious and wildly unique, but I thought it was a bit too pricey when it originally launched. Now at $19.99, a 33% discount is all I needed to recommend this to the nation of Nindie. As the first game I played this year back in January when it released on Xbox and PC, Nobody Saves the World does everything we love here at Nindie Nation. It's a top-down dungeon crawler by the team who made Guacamelee that has a persistent overworld with procedurally generated dungeons, roguelike mechanics, ow, and RPG elements! It's drenched in laugh-out-loud comedy, has a super deep form system that lets you play as 20 different characters who can switch between each other on the fly, and later in the game really puts your strategy to the test as you combine various abilities to combat all kinds of elementally aligned enemies. It's only 20% off, but for $19.99, Nobody Saves the World is one of the quintessential indies for the Switch this year. And then we've got my current number 2 release of the year, Infernax, which takes the formula of games like Shovel Knight with its nods to all kinds of action platformers, and does it with a heavy lean towards Castlevania, specifically Castlevania II: Simon's Quest. It's not nearly as obtuse as that game, but it boasts a semi-open world with a story that is slightly tongue-in-cheek, but still very well told. This is one of those games that I fell in love with the second I started it, and you can see our Nindies at Night stream if you want to check out the first hour or so. And now with a 20% discount and about 7 hours of gameplay before getting to multiple New Game Plus modes, $15.99 is a great price on one of my favorite games of this year. And finally, the game that is currently sitting at the top of my Nindie throne, Young Souls is a game that I have not been able to get out of my head since I originally beat it back in March. It's a story-driven action RPG, but the combat is tried-and-true brawler fare with deep gameplay mechanics alongside the aforementioned RPG systems. The story revolves around 2 orphans, siblings, who grew up under the watch of the local scientist who most of the town believes is crazy. After a series of events, you have to rescue him from a land of goblins with a plotline told through some of the best storytelling I've seen in a long time. The game is really hard though, so I quickly bumped down the game's difficulty to easy and still found a great challenge while removing any of the frustration, so you might want to do the same. I can't recommend Young Souls enough, and right now it's 25% off for $18.74. Phew! Big episode this week, huh? There's a lot of deals out there right now, so let me know what else you've seen and if you're picking up any of this week's recommendations. Sound off in the comments, chat with us on Twitter, or come join us on Discord for more Nindie discussions with a wonderful little community. We'll be back for Nindies at Night this week, but with so many great games coming out, it's gonna be a bit of a toss-up with what we're playing. So stay tuned to Twitter and the YouTube community tab, and I'll let you know as soon as possible so you can come join us this Thursday at 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on YouTube. Otherwise, that's it for this week, citizens. We've got a lot in store over the next couple of weeks as we see a bunch of not E3 announcements that make their way over to the Switch. So make sure to stay tuned for next week's episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and sharing Nindie Nation with others. I'm Jeff. This has been Nindie Nation episode 148. And remember, no matter what type of game you're looking for, Nindie Nation will be right here to help you find just the thing to keep your Joy-Cons synced.